And we're going to answer a reader question. This is kind of a follow-up to last week. Last week I talked about how you can run a small group that is vulnerable and effective and people are growing together. So if you want to listen back on that one, I do like when I think back on that, the one thing I want you guys to remember is that when you decide to engage with people spiritually, when you start a book club, when you start a Bible study, when you volunteer in your kids ministry in your church, you are a leader. It doesn't matter if they're your friends. It doesn't matter if it's your friends' kids. You have become a leader, which means that you have a mantle of authority. You have a calling on your life as an influencer, and you got to take that seriously, which means you got to be in the Word. You got to be with God so that you can minister to those people. He's calling you to a group of people. It might be part of your destiny, part of that plans that he's made in advance for you. So I said that last week, and then I had a follow-up question about that conversation. And the question was, okay, the person referred to a chapter, I think it was chapter 3 in She's Got Issues, where I talked about the idea of the trajectory of people's lives, that if we don't deal with our issues, we enter into a trajectory where we either become sort of calcified in bitterness, which I'm sure you've experienced. People like this, don't name them right now. I know they're in your mind, but calcified in bitterness, or we move towards brokenness and we become kind of beaten people. So those are sort of the two ways that I think that life goes if we don't deal with our issues. So this person's question was, I have a person in my life who's really a broken, beaten person. They don't seem to be able to be vulnerable, or when they are vulnerable, it's really been very infrequent. I've been one of the only people in their life that it feels like they've been vulnerable with. So I don't know if you guys can think about a situation like that, or maybe you're that person you've experienced. But this person's question was, how do I care for this person who I know is not really being honest about their life with anyone? Like, I'm the only person that they're honest with. And maybe that honesty has only happened a couple of times. I want to be close to this person, but I feel like I can't be close to this person. So I'm going to say this in all the love that I can. So please receive my love at this moment. When a person is not able to be vulnerable, you will only be able to get so close to them. That's just the way it is. Like, you can be 100% vulnerable. You can give them your whole heart. You can give them all of your honesty. But if they are not honest with themselves, there's always going to be a wall there. And you first and foremost have to maybe actually examine your own expectations of the relationship and ask yourself, what is it that I really wish and desire that I had with this person? If person is a parent or a best friend or someone that you've known from your childhood or your spouse, that is a really difficult thing to take before the Lord, to say, I want to examine my expectations for what I would like for this relationship to be, and sort of even grieve where it really is. Because if a person has those kind of walls, there is going to be a block. Like, you can't overcome their lack of vulnerability with your vulnerability. You can't jump over and be there with them and sort of get them to be in it with you without them wanting to do that. So there's probably going to be a limit to y'all's relationship to a certain extent. And the sooner that you can embrace that and say, okay, you know what, this is what it is, and I would love to be close to this person, but I'm not going to be able to be that close to them. That's going to take some pressure off of the relationship, because it's really easy to crush a person with those kind of expectations. So the first thing that I would do is sort of examine with honesty what you wish the relationship could be with the Lord. Maybe you journal about it and say, hey, this person, I wish that we could be closer. Because if you can let the pressure off of that and realize, my vulnerability is not going to make them more vulnerable all the time, if I've already tried that, then you're probably going to right size where the relationship can go right now. The second thing that I would tell you is, if you're a person who's experienced this, is that there's a big difference in the Christian life between caring for someone, and cure, which is curing someone. We live in a culture that wants to cure people. We see a problem, we want to fix it. We see something going on that's a hardship, we want an expert to get involved. We love WebMD, we love diagnoses, we love to know what the problem is so we can solve it. That's just the culture that we swim in. And so we bring that into our faith. So when we see a person who's broken, who's hurting, that we can tell, or we're starting to get a perception and realize, man, they are not really embracing all that they could be because they're not honest about their life. They haven't really actually gotten there. We want to fix it. It's just part of our culture. So we want to cure it, and our world wants to cure it. But the Christian life is a call to care for people. And to care for people is to come alongside of them. To care for people is to not have the answers. To care is a slow and long and messy work. It doesn't happen right away, and we often don't see the results of it. To care for someone is to really hold their hand when all they can do is cry, and there's not more that you can do. And to care for someone like that actually takes a ton of courage, takes a ton of faith. It means you have to believe that God is the one who can actually cure, and that you don't have the ability to cure yourself. So I would say to this person, there's a difference between care and cure, and you're called to care.